and building community. We are committed to helping individuals break cycles. We are delighted that you have taken the opportunity to join us. So prepare yourselves for this week's teaching and equipping session. Get ready to be educated, equipped, and set free as you listen to this week's broadcast. And thank you for joining us.
Hey, Dream family. I am back home in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I got to come up and visit the Dream family in Cincinnati over the weekend, and we had an awesome service last night. There were so many families that were able to come up and get baptized. Apostle Deborah Edwards taught on deliverance and just really what it meant to be deliverance and baptism, especially baptism by water and by fire. So she talked about that last night. It was an amazing time. We even had a young person come up and get baptized, and a lot of this was just people coming up and feeling the Spirit and feeling led in the moment. So it was truly exciting. Again, we want to thank Pastor Saram Brooks and his lovely wife, Lakisa, for welcoming us into their church and allowing us to use their home for the service last night. The men and women of Dream came out and represented, along with their families, their friends, their loved ones. And so if you did not have a chance to join us last night, definitely keep in touch with us for the next time that we'll have a service like the one that we had, where we will definitely teach on just the baptism and talking about that more in depth. So stay tuned, and to find out about the next time we do something like that, definitely make sure you like, share, and subscribe. That's where you'll find out more about all of the events that we have coming up. And that's even our men's empowerment that meet every Monday, our sister to sisters that meet every other Monday, and then once a month. I'm sorry, it's once a month. And then we have our marriage ministry that meets twice a month, once on the first Friday, that is in person, and then we do virtual, that's the third Friday. So lots of festivities and activities going on, and as well as Sunday service. We meet for 1 hour every Sunday at 9 a.m. at the Dream Center. So that address for you is 636 Northland Boulevard. So you can come on in and join us. If you are a loved one or somebody you're going, is going through a situation where you feel like you want deliverance, you need it, you can definitely get in touch with us at DREEMM. That's DREEMM002@gmail.com. You can also visit our website and sign up for deliverance on our website. So I am Kai Cunningham. You guys, I went all the way to Cincinnati over the weekend because I just knew I needed to get baptized. I knew it. And I had been wanting it for a few years. And I felt like now was the time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience as we go through tonight. But let's just get into this word. Let's get into what we got tonight. So tonight, the title of this sermon, and I'm looking over to my right because I'm pulling it up, is The Price of Deliverance. All the time, we take families and individuals, men and women, through deliverance with our ministry. We are a deliverance ministry out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And one of the questions that always comes up is, how much does it cost? What is the cost of deliverance? And I oftentimes got that question. And of course, we tell people, we do deliverance sessions here. This is how you do it. And at this time, we do not charge for deliverance, but it does cost you something. There is definitely a cost to deliverance. And so I'm going to talk to that a little bit more as we go on through our session tonight, but I want to jump right in. So before we start talking about everything that goes with deliverance, we always like to make sure that we lay a good foundation. And by foundation, we like to give you some information about everything that we're going to cover tonight. So I thought a good place to start would be, what is deliverance? Like, what is that? And it's the act of being rescued or set free. It's liberation. It's salvation. That is what deliverance is. It's being rescued from being bound. And what may I be bound with, Kai? Maybe there's some traumatic events that have taken place in your life that's caused you to have some other outcomes, which could be anger, frustration. Maybe you've been through rape and there are products that have come from that rape. Maybe it's because of a choice to have an abortion, and there's some things that come from that, and I need to be delivered from those things. And Kai, maybe it's, my attachment to different organizations, or, different things that I've done in my life. Maybe I made a choice to go out there and commit adultery. And now I'm dealing with some things that have come from that adultery, that have caused some unresolved issues, or, some trauma that was behind that. So that is really what we talk about when we go into deliverance, is understanding that. And do know that when you go through deliverance with Dream, your information is private. You will never hear us talking about you in a sermon series. You'll never hear us talking about, listen, let me tell you what Kathy went through and what she told me. Let me tell you what Tom said he's going through. Like, that information is confidential and it is private. Unless you decide, hey, I want to get up there and I want to tell about what I went through and how God delivered me, because I want it to be the blueprint for somebody else who's dealing with that same situation. And a lot of the ministers who are a part of the Dream team, and some of our team members even get up and they give testimonies where they tell people, hey, this is what I struggle with, this is what I dealt with, this is what I needed deliverance from, and then this is how God used me in this situation. So that is just a little bit about deliverance. I am going to start off with some foundation. Let's get into the scripture and then we'll get right into the sermon. So I am going to start at 2 Kings 4:1-7. You guys, it is storming pretty bad in Chattanooga. So I am hoping that we don't have any issues. I'm praying, not hoping. We're going to pray. And we're going to say this thing is going to go perfectly fine. The broadcast is going to broadcast perfect, and there will be no disruptions and no delays to anybody being able to receive this word. We're going to speak that, not hope it. So let's get into it. 2 Kings 4. Let's go with 1-7. So I am going to read it. It says, the wife of a man from a company of prophets cried out to Elijah. And she said, your servant, my husband, is dead. And you know that he revered the Lord, but now his creditors are coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves. Elijah said to her, how can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house? So what do you already have access to that you can use to solve this problem? And she said, your servant has nothing there at all, she said, except for a small jar of olive oil. Elijah said, go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side. She left him and she shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her and she kept pouring. When all the jars were full, she said to her sons, bring me another one. But he replied, there's not a jar left. Then the oil stopped flowing. She went and she told the man, and he said, go sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can now live with what you had, what is left. So you guys, let's go ahead and let's get into this great story. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what is going on here, and we are going to go into details about what next. So first, let's start with the beginning. We're going to start with get your affairs in order. So in the beginning of this, her husband has passed. He was with Elisha and the company of prophets, and this particular husband died suddenly, apparently. And because he died suddenly, he didn't have his affairs in order. So after he died, his creditors came to his wife and said, we're going to take your sons, because in that time, that is exactly what they could do. They could take your children and put your children as slaves. It is just like families that we meet. And when we talk about deliverance, we talk about how it not only impacts the husband, the wife, the mother, the father, but it impacts the children too. See, oftentimes we think the issues that we're dealing with, only I'm dealing with it. My kids are not dealing with it. I committed adultery. How is this affecting my children? Well, those spirits that you've allowed access into your bloodline, they absolutely can continue throughout the generation, and they can continue throughout your bloodline until somebody decides and then says, this far and no further. It will not impact us anymore. And so in this case, that's exactly what happened with this particular husband. This husband had creditors that he owed money to. When he passed, he still owed a debt. That debt was not paid when he passed, and it did not go away with him because he passed. Just like those spirits that you allow access into your bloodline and allow access to your children, and allow access to your grandchildren. And so in this story, what happens is those creditors have come for her children and said, listen, we're going to take your sons. And unless this debt is paid. So she goes to the prophet and she says, I need help. So as I said, the first thing is get your affairs in order. Let's talk about this. Are you prepared for what happens to your family after you pass? So do you have insurance in place? And is it enough to sustain your family's way of living even afterwards? If you have a two-income household and your two-income household is really what's sustaining and being able to keep you guys sustained, husbands, what happens if something happens to you? What happens to your wife? What happens to your children? What happens to the way they live? Are they going to be able to sustain their living, or are they going to have to step down? Are they going to have to go to a smaller place? Are they going to lose the house? Are they going to lose the cars? This is the type of planning we have to think. We have to think way beyond just making sure the funeral is paid for. What happens 6 months down the line? Are they going to lose everything? Is your significant other going to be stressing about how to take care of the bills? Have you thought about that? Have you guys sat down and had that conversation to go, you know what, how do we take care of things? What happens if, God forbid, tomorrow morning I don't wake up? What happens if tomorrow evening, God forbid, I don't wake up? What are we going to do? So have you had that conversation to, one, get your affairs in order? And while we're talking about getting your affairs in order, have you thought about, and this was something that, it was new to me because of the situation my grandparents are in. We had already had conversations, my husband and I, about, God, if anything happens, here's what we want to happen. Here's how we're going to be able to sustain. This is where the money is. This is what we're leaving over. But what we did not have a conversation about was what happens if we need some care while we're still alive. Like, what happens then? What if we need a nurse to come in and take care of us? What if one of us needs surgery? What if somebody has to go into a nursing home? What if somebody gets dementia? What if, anything like that happens? What if we have to take care of our children? What happens if everybody has to move back home? We didn't have any of those conversations to start thinking through things and planning things and making sure we have things in place and asking for God to give us wisdom on how to move forward in the event. We thank God and we speak, nothing happens. That's what we speak. But God, you know what? I don't want to be in a situation where we are not prepared. What happens if, can we keep food on the table? If God forbid anything happens, what about, can we sustain? Can we keep going? Are you having those conversations? And what about the other side of this? What happens, God forbid, if God calls you home tomorrow? Where are you going to spend your eternity? Have you had that conversation? Have you thought about it? I remember that was a question that in the church I used to go to, they ask quite frequently, where are you going? If you died right now in this moment, where are you going? Do you know? Do you have any idea? Do you care? Are you just going through life willy-nilly and just saying whatever happens, happens, let the cars fall where they may? Or are you going into this thing with your eyes open? And are you going into this thing going, God, I trust you. I believe in you. I've confessed you. You are the Lord of my life. You're the head of my life. And I'm following you. I've committed my life to you, my soul to you. I am tied to you. And I believe your son died on the cross for my sin. Have you said those things? And do you really believe it? Is it just something you say? I told you guys about earlier on in life, there was somebody who made the comment that, if I know I'm going to die in the next 5 minutes, then I would just say a prayer really quickly and ask God to forgive me for my sin and let me come into heaven. Well, do you mean it in your heart? Is that what you meant? Or are you saying it now because I'm scared and I don't want to go to hell? And is that what you're counting on? Having that second where you can make that prayer and hopefully I mean it enough in my heart that God receives it. Not that I'm just saying it out of fear because I'm afraid that I'm about to go to hell for the way that I've been living when I knew I was living wrong. Are your affairs in order? Let's go on. Next thing. Deliverance is a messy business. It is a messy business. That is definitely what we get. Let's go to Mark 8, 22 and 26, 22 through 26. Mark 8. Then they came to Bethesda, and some people brought a blind man to Jesus and begged him to touch him. Taking the blind man by the hand, he led him out of the village, and after he spit on his eyes, laying his hands on him, he asked him, "Do you see anything?" I want to stop right there because that is important. One of the questions we get from people or comments I get is, "I want a clean deliverance." Like, I don't want to be screaming. I don't want to be hollering. I don't want to be throwing up. I don't want none of that. I want it to be a clean deliverance. And sometimes deliverance is messy. It's not clean. Sometimes deliverance doesn't go according to your plans. I plan for my deliverance to look like such and such and so, and that's really all I want. I'm not really ready to relinquish control. I'm not really ready to allow God to come in unless God is going to come in the way I want him to come in. He's going to do this the way I want it to be done. And if he wants to do anything else, I am not saying, "Have your way, God." I'm not telling him to do anything, outrageous. I'm just telling him, "You know what, God, I only want it if it's in this little box." Because that's the constraints that we put God on under. I want it to be in this little box, just like this, frame it like this. God, I want my freedom to come like this. God, I don't want to have to work for it. I want it to just come easy. I want it to just flow. I want the money to just flow to me, God. I want to just win the lottery and win a lot of money, but I don't want to go out there and have to work hard for it. And that's how we want the deliverance. I want it in this box under these guidelines, the way I want it to happen, with no stress and no judgment. I want deliverance behind closed doors with nobody knowing my issues. I want deliverance to look like this. I don't want nobody to know my past. I don't want nobody to know where I came from. I don't want anybody to know anything. I'm not really ready to tell the team everything I'm dealing with. And one thing people don't know is while we're in that room, God will start telling us what you're not saying. The things that you thought were hidden, that you've dug so deep, it's so buried that nobody will know. God will tell his people. It's nothing hidden from God. There is no part of you, anything you can do, that God has not already seen it. And that he doesn't already know before you even do it. He knew what you were going to do before you even made the decision. And so there is nothing hidden. So when you go into deliverance, you either go into it going, "You know what? I don't care. Who knows what? I'll tell you everything." I want to be free so bad that I don't care who's in the room. I don't care. Listen, Tom, Bob, Sarah, Susan, Mary, Jane, whoever in here, I did it. It was me. It was me. I did it. I did that too. What, that over there? I did that too. That was me 2 years ago. Or you're going into the room and you're trying to hide everything. I don't want God to know that I did this. I don't want God to know I thought that. I don't want God to know I was watching pornography. I don't want God to know that, I was sleeping around. I don't want God to know. It's not hidden. Deliverance is messy. And in this situation with this lady, it was very messy. People knew that her husband died. That wasn't a secret. People had already knew that. People already knew what she was going through. And in this story, when we go back to 2 Kings 1 through 4, what did Elisha tell her to do? In verse 3, it says, Elijah said, "Go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for a few." Hold on, let's stop right there. So now I gotta go expose myself, my needs to my neighbors? You want me to go door to door and say to each one of them, "Hey, you got any empty jars I can have?" For those of you who are like trying to equate what that would look like today, the only thing I can wrap this up, like, I don't know if your moms made you guys do this, but my mom did. Go next door and ask such and such and so-and-so, does she have a cup of sugar? But instead of asking her for a cup of sugar, she would say, go, if she were to say to me, go next door and ask Susan or Mary or Jane, ask them for that butter container that's sitting in the refrigerator that's got a little spoonful of butter in it. We just need the container. That is what the prophet told her to do. Go get the empty jars that your neighbors have that have no oil in it. So it's nothing inside of these jars that you can sell. There is no way you can resell the jars empty, but go ask them for their trash. So now I got to go begging and expose myself to them to let them know this is the issue I have. And I have these creditors after me. And what I thought was a secret issue that I'm just going to go to the prophet and say, Elisha, I need help. You got some money? Because that's what we want. We want the quick solution. We don't want the one where I got to expose all of me to them. I don't even know them like that. How many of you would feel comfortable going in front of people and just telling them, this is me. Here I am. I'm messed up. This is the situation I'm in. But this is what he told the widow to do. And there's something you've got to think about it. When it came in that time to the finances of the family, it was the head of the household who went and secured employment. It was the head of the household who would go out and get the job and get the funding in order to feed the family. And now she's got to go to all of these people and be put in a position of begging. Her husband was in a position where he was with the prophets. He was with Elijah. And now I'm in a position where I got to go beg people for help. Isn't that funny how deliverance sometimes looks like that, a different lens, where now I need to be in a position where I need to humble myself. I got to humble myself with all these people watching in front of this whole crowd and say, I need help. Help me out. Are you willing to do that in order to be delivered? Are you willing to do that in order to be set free? Are you willing to be put in a position where other people going to talk about you behind your back? Because we got to believe she's knocking door to door and people whispering. Oh, girl, did you see her? Did she come and ask you for a jar too? Girl, she came and asked me for a jar. I don't know what she doing with empty jars. Think of the embarrassment that she had to carry with her. Going from person to person to person to person to person, begging for jars. While at the same time, not knowing what was going to happen. All I know is I'm supposed to get these jars. I don't know how this is going to solve my problem. I have no idea. All I know is the Dream Team put up a website and told me to go to this website and fill out this form, but I'm going to get delivered? What does that, I'm still depressed. I'm still crying. I got suicidal thoughts. They don't understand what's going on with me. I'm still addicted to drugs. I'm still having sex. I'm still addicted to sex, Kai. I'm addicted to shopping. My marriage is on the verge of not making it, Kai. We about to lose everything, and I'm about to lose my mind. Kai, are you serious? He didn't tell her what the end would be. He just gave her the instructions on what the beginning will be. And isn't that just like God to do that with us? To say the same thing to you and not tell you in the end, this is where you're going to end up at. God comes in and he just goes, I need you to just go over here. You don't know what's going to happen when you get over there. I just need you to line up. I need your faith to be in place where you just move where I tell you to move at, where you just flow where I tell you to flow at. But sometimes we want the whole story before we'll even take a step out on faith. I need to know what's going to happen after this. I need to know in the exact order. Okay, I'm going to get the jars, and then what? Okay, and then what's going to happen after that? Before I even went to go collect jars, I need to know the whole plan. Is that how you are in approaching your deliverance? Or are you stepping out of your comfort zone and going, I ain't got nothing to lose, which is where this mother obviously was. I've already lost my husband. We have no finances in the house. And now creditors are talking about taking my sons. I ain't got nothing else to lose. I don't care who knows. I don't care how crazy I look asking for these jars. I don't care who talking about me behind my back. All I know is the man of God said, go get these empty jars, and that's what I'm going to do. So that is exactly where we find this mom at this point. This mother is in 2 Kings 4:1-7. She has gone and collected the jars. She went door to door. She got as many as she can gather up. She brought them in her house. And what did the prophet say next? Let's look at what he said next. He said, then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons, and pour oil into all the jars. And as each is filled, put one to one side. So that's exactly what she did. Let's go to our next point. What is our next point? What are you willing to face or give up for your deliverance? What are you willing to face or give up for your deliverance? Some of us are not moving forward and moving towards God, to walk towards deliverance, because I'm not willing to give it up, God. What is the thing that you have put in the place of God that has become your idol, to where you're going, I'm not moving, I'm not giving anything up, because this idol is more important to me than being delivered? Is it, I'm not giving up, my home, I'm not giving up, the church I go to, the friends I hang with, I'm not giving up the job I have, I'm not giving up, my ability, my freedom to move how I want to move, I'm not giving up the lifestyle that I live, I'm not giving up, the area I know God is calling me and telling me to go somewhere else, I'm not going there, I'm staying right here. What are you holding on to that you refuse to give up? I'm going to tell you my story, because I told you, what we do, we talk about our stories to help relate it to a way, just like Jesus used parables to help bring this story home. So first of all, I'm going to tell you, I did not know that I was holding on to trauma until yesterday night. So let's talk about what trauma is first, and then I'm going to get into the story. So trauma is a lasting emotional response to a distressing event or series of events that can cause physical and psychological harm. Traumatic events can be frightening, stressful, or difficult to cope with, and can be out of a person's control. It's out of my control, but this event has caused some frightening, some stressful, or some difficulty with coping with this particular issue. So what was the event for Kai? When I was 4 years old, I got baptized. Now, I have to believe at 4, my family was trying to make it make sense what was getting ready to happen. All I knew is they told me that there was going to be a pool in the church. We are bringing a pool to the church, and you're going to get in this pool. And I was so excited, and I just could not make my mind up. And I had to be about 4 or 5. And I'm like, wait a minute. So it's a pool at the church. Where has this pool been this whole time? Because never have I been to church and we got in the pool. So I just was so confused. So when they got all the kids together, I believe my mom had to tell me what this meant, but it just did not gather for me what baptism was. So it wasn't until they put me in the water that I start to get scared. Something's wrong here. And why are there 2 men on the side of me holding my arms, getting ready to put me in this water? So I'm freaking out internally. I don't know what to think. I've already started crying because I'm scared of what's happening, and nobody's really telling me anything. And so all of a sudden they say, do you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior? And I'm thinking Savior is the only word that I caught. So I'm thinking he about to come get me out of this water, because I'm not about to play this game. And then all of a sudden they dip me in the water. Now, they didn't dip me down and bring me back up. The pastor was talking while I was under the water, and I am freaking out. And finally, when they let me up, I start crying. So my mom comes and gets me and takes me out of church. That is my memory of being baptized. That is it, that traumatic experience. Now, 2 years later, I am at a pool with my grandparents. Had two adopted children, foster children. My great grandmother that lived with her, and all of the cousins went to the pool. I am probably between 6 and 7, somewhere in there, maybe a little bit younger. It probably was closer together to this experience, but I don't remember the exact age. I just know I was younger than 7. And so I am at this pool with all of my cousins, older brother, everybody's there. It is kids galore. And we are in the kiddie side of the pool. So it's gotta be maybe 3 feet. And so this particular foster cousin says to me, you know what? You can go jump. And I don't know if it was the 10 feet or the 12 feet, but she was like, you can go jump in that side of the pool and you'll be perfectly fine. Your feet will touch the bottom. I don't know any different. So I'm like, oh, okay. She was like, yeah, but you have to like run and jump in the deep end, like try to jump to the middle of the pool, because that way your feet will touch the bottom. You won't be able to touch it on the sides, but you've got to jump in the middle. Now, again, I don't know no difference. So I'm like, okay, I see all my brothers over there. All of my older cousins are over there. So I'm thinking, I want to go get in the pool with them. So I'm going to do this. And that is exactly what I do. I get out of the pool, I head down to either the 10 or 12 feet, whatever it was, and I step back, take off running, and jump into the middle of the pool. And as you guys can guess, I could not swim. And so I immediately started drowning. So these are my 2 traumatic experiences with water. Very traumatic. I don't remember what happened after I got in the pool, to be honest. I know somebody got me out. I don't know who, but I don't remember anything else. Since then, I have never in my life got in the deep end of another pool. I have never in my entire life, my team doesn't even know this. I have never told anybody this story because I just didn't. I didn't think about it till last night. I've never in my life went up underwater and got, water completely submerged on my head ever again in life. After those 2 traumatic experiences, never wanted to. Never, ever in my life have I ever wanted to go swimming with everybody else. Don't. When I get in water, if I'm getting in a pool or something like that, I need to hold the side of the pool, like to make sure I'm safe. And I need to either have on a vest or something like that, because I need to make sure that I am not going to drown. I did not realize I was still dealing with that issue as an adult now. It was just something that I'm like, this is what I never do. And I just don't think about it, like ever think about it. And so as I was getting ready to be baptized, like I know God was telling me, you need to be baptized. You need to be baptized. There's something that needs to die off of you. I didn't understand what needed to die. I thought like, okay, God, maybe you're telling me what needs to be dying is like something I'm doing that I'm not thinking about. Bring it to my remembrance so I know what it is. Did not think this at first. And so as I'm traveling to Cincinnati, I hear a little nag in the back of my head. You don't want to go up underwater. And so I thought about it and I'm like, wait, why not? And then all of this stuff starts coming up. And I know the first thing I felt was fear. So I'm like, nope, I'm definitely getting baptized now. This is definitely happening. I'm going up there. I'm going to do this. And so as I'm standing there yesterday night, getting ready to be baptized, in my mind, I hear the fear again. Not necessarily the fear of you getting baptized and everybody's going to be around, but fear is playing of, oh my God, they're going to submerge you underwater and somebody's going to have to hold you up under the water. God, stop it. Because God, stop that voice, because I'm getting in this water. Like, there's nothing stopping me. So as soon as Apostle said service was coming to a close, we're about to start the baptismal, I was like, I know I need to go first, because I knew if I stood there and let anybody go in front of me, I would talk myself out of it. And I can't talk myself out of it. So I got in the water, and Darren's on one side, and Pastor Saran is on the other side. So remember, as a child, there were 2 men who put me in the water, right? So in my mind, that is the first thought that comes up. And I'm like, nope, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I want to go to, God, I want to be closer to you. You're telling me I need to be baptized. I am going to go through this. I'm going to get up through this. Y'all, why before he baptized me, in my head, I thought, they're going to have to do this twice. And I'm like, no, they're not. They're going to do it fine. It's going to be fine the first time. And so Darren and Saran dip me down. I come up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm okay. Like nothing's wrong. And then all of a sudden, Apostle was like, get up out of the water. You did. Come on out. God, glory to God. And Saran was like, we have to dip her again. We have to dip her again. And so I'm like, oh, I have to do it again. Okay, but I'm not afraid. I'm not going to let fear stop me. Let's do it. Let's do it again. And so I put my hands over my chest and I'm like, let's do it. Let's go back. Where are we going back? Because I'm ready for this. And as soon as I came up the second time, I felt a release. I felt it break up off of me. I didn't understand that I was still holding on to the trauma of what happened when I was 5 and 6 years old. Didn't even think about it again until at that very moment. Isn't it funny how those things, those triggers stay with us, even though you may not remember where the original seed of the trauma was even planted? You may not ever think about it again. You may never talk about it again. I don't know why I do X like X. I just know I do it this way. I don't know why I don't get in water. I just don't. I'm not about to be in nobody's pool. I don't like germs. Like that, and that's real. But I'm not about to be in nobody's pool. Not gonna do it. And so now I'm looking back and going, all those seeds were planted before, based on an experience that happened in my childhood. So what are you willing to give up, or what are you willing to face for your deliverance? For me, it was facing sitting in this baptismal pool and getting dunked down in the water, just like it happened when I was 5 and 6 years old. I'm willing to go through that again, because nothing is going to hold me from God. Nothing is going to keep me out of his will, not even the thing I'm afraid of. I am willing to face my fears, anything that would have held me back from him, in order to get closer to him, in order to be in his will. What are you afraid of that will keep you away from God? Is it I'm afraid of people judging me once they know what I went through? Because, honey, I faced that too. I faced that too. I remember breaking down to Apostle Deborah and going, as soon as I tell them, we were doing the genealograms, and I told her, as soon as people find out about my genealogram and about my family history, they are definitely going to judge me. And when they find out what I did, they're definitely going to judge me for this. But then I got to a point where I was like, I don't care who knows. I just want to be free. I don't want to be depressed anymore. I don't want to be crying anymore. I just want to be over it. I want to be free. I remember telling her a few years ago, Apostle, this is the longest I've ever went and felt peace. Like not breaking down, not crying, not depressed, not wanting to shut myself in my room all day long. This is the longest I felt this. Wow. Like when you felt like you've been underwater. That's your reality for so long, dealing with so much pressure and anxiety and frustration for so long. And then you feel like that liberation where you feel like I can breathe. I am completely free. That's what deliverance is. So let's go to thing number 4, and then I'm going to wrap up thing number 5 really quickly here. We already talked about this, but let's say it one more time. When you look at 2 Kings 4, I'm going to go to verse 4. He said, then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour the oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side. Shut the door behind you. Let's talk about shutting doors. First of all, that is exactly what deliverance is. It is closing those doors that were open that allowed the enemy access to you. That is what deliverance does. We're going to shut that door and we're going to seal it so that the enemy can't get back into you unless you go and open the door. And what does open the door means? I reestablish agreement. I reestablish that covenant that I had with the enemy. But if I don't reestablish the covenant, if I don't reestablish the agreement, the door stays still. I stay in God's presence. One thing I heard that a minister said that I thought was really profound and really true. He was talking about Job, and he was saying the enemy couldn't get to Job. Why? Because Job stayed in God's presence. And as long as Adam stayed in the presence of God in the Garden of Eden, Satan couldn't get to him. So what did he do? He went to Eve. Who's ever out of God's presence, that's where the enemy is going to go, because he's looking for a way in. I'm trying to give me a door. Let me figure out how to get in here somewhere. And as long as that door is sealed, because I am constantly on my face before God, because I'm constantly in his word, I'm not giving the enemy even an inch to get in. You can't get to me. But the second I let up is the moment I let the enemy in. And so that's why it's important, you guys, that you shut the door. Shut the door. I'm not allowing the enemy access to my family, to my household, to my marriage, to my finances, to my job, to my kids, to my grandkids, to my siblings, to my aunts, to my uncles. I'm shutting the door. He can't come in here. And the only way he can is if somebody opens it. Somebody opens it. The other thing about shutting the door, this is keeping the people out who want to come in. Those people who will drag you back to where God has delivered you from. I've come out of some things. I don't never want to go back to that stuff again. I just talked about being depressed almost every day. I don't ever want to go back there again. I am living in peace. Like I'm living in peace. I'm living in the overflow. My marriage is blessed. My children are blessed. I don't want to go back to where we came from. So I'm not about for a second to turn around and look back. I'm trying to go forward. I'm trying to keep moving towards the mark of the high calling. So I got to stay in my word. But that also means I can't allow people, certain people can't come in. You can't come in, especially if you're trying to take me back there. You trying to take me to old Kai. I can't be her. I can't be her no more. God has a different calling on my life. Wouldn't it look crazy if I'm here telling you how good God is, and then tomorrow you hear a story that I done did something outlandish on the news, and I'm on the news looking like Medea and the police chasing me? Wouldn't that be crazy? So I got to keep certain things, certain circles I can't go back into. Certain people I can't hang with. We're not thinking the same. We're not looking the same. We're not on the same path. I'm going after God. You going a whole other direction. And what happens? It's easier. You may try to pull me backwards. And it might be easier for you to do that if I don't remain in my word. And so sometimes shutting the door means I got to shut the door on people who would doubt the faith. So that means my faith is in God. It's certain people I can't talk to because you want to tell me why God's not real. He make believe like the Easter Bunny. Oh, okay. And I'm not about to argue back and forth with you. I'm going to give you the word, and then I'm going to walk away and let you do what you do. And eventually, when you're ready to hear it, I'll be here. There is a proverb that says something like, when the student is ready, the teacher appear. I'll be here. I'll give you that word. I'll give it to you then. But what I'm not about to do is sit here and keep arguing back and forth with you because you really believe that God is not real. And there's nothing I can say right now that's going to help you realize that he is in this moment because you're not ready to listen. And so really what this conversation is going to be is an argument. We going back and forth. And nobody's going to gain any ground. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to the next person who's ready to hear, who's ready to listen, whose ears are open, and they're going, I want to hear from God. That's who I'm going to go talk to. God, send me to those people who are ready to receive from you. Now, am I not going to sow a seed with you? The person who's going, I don't want to hear it? I absolutely am. But I'm going to sow a seed and I'm going to keep it moving. I'm not going to sow a seed and go into an argument with you. This doesn't have to be a battle. And that's where I don't want to be, because you end up becoming that person that they just don't receive. And so every time you come around, they're frustrated. Here you come. Here she comes. And it starts wearing you down. You start doubting. You start going back and going, is this right? Is this wrong? Should I say that? Should I not? Do I even want to go around them? I know as soon as I come over here, they're going to start going, here she come with that Jesus mess. Do I even want to do? You don't even want to live like that. There's some people you've got to shut it out, especially when you're trying to get your own deliverance. I don't want to move backwards. I want to move forward. So I can't be trying to get my deliverance, trying to fight you at the same time, and you trying to pull me back away from my deliverance. I got to press towards God. And the only way I can do that is by shutting the doors on certain things. So I got to shut the doors on naysayers. The next thing you're going to have to shut the doors on is anything, your guilt, your shame, feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm so dirty. God's never going to forgive me. He's never going to wash me clean. He's going to look at me and tell me I'm horrible. He's going to tell me I'm a horrible person. You got to shut the door on your own beat down of you, your own guilt and shame. So you're shutting the door on that. And then you've got to shut the door on all the curses that will come out of your own mouth. The things that you would say about you, about your life, about your circumstance, about the situation that you're in. I got to shut the door on that. So I need to seal my mouth. If all I need to do is all day long just read the Bible, and all day long, that's what I'm speaking is word all day long, because I don't want to come into agreement and look at my situation and go, oh, woe is me. You right. The doctor said this, that, and the third. So yeah, I guess they right. You got to shut the door on your own self. I need to make sure that stuff is not coming up out of my mouth. So that would be the fourth thing. The fifth thing, your obedience and faith is a setup for God to show up. Your obedience and your faith is a setup for God to show up. What does that mean? So as we read, let's go back to 2 Kings 4, and we're going to pick up at 5. Let's pick up at 5. It says, she left him and shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. When all the jars were full, she said to her sons, bring me another one. But he replied, there is not a jar left. Then the oil stopped flowing. So the oil did not stop flowing until there was no jars left. She went and told the man of God, and he said, go sell the oil and pay your debts, and you and your sons can live on what's left. If she hadn't been obedient, and she hadn't done what God told her to do, what the man of God told her to do through the words that God has given to him, and told her to go step out on faith and do this, had she sat down and said, oh, woe is me, it ain't gonna work out, I'm just gonna sit here, I guess I'm gonna lose my son, I done lost everything else. If she hadn't got up and start doing what was said to do, then she wouldn't have been able to see the fruition of what God brought into existence. God showed up in her situation. A miracle happened where all I got is a little jar of oil. That's it. But the jar keeps pouring, keeps pouring, keeps pouring, keeps pouring, keeps pouring. To every jar that she had, every empty vessel is completely full. Every single one she had. When your faith and your obedience line up, when I line up, and it's a setup for God to show up. So when I start saying, God, you know what? I'm going to move on faith. I'm going to go get in this baptismal pool. I'm going to drive the 5 hours to Cincinnati. It don't even matter. I'm driving up there, and I don't know what's going to happen when I get there, but I'm going to get in this pool. What? You got to take me down a second time? Oh, okay. Take me down the second time. I don't know. Do we need a third time? Did it take that time? When I line up my faith and my obedience, and you push past your fear, your doubt, your anxiety, when you push past all of those things that the naysayers, the people who would tell you that it's not going to work, it ain't going to happen for you. Nobody ever had this situation or that thing happen. Nobody is ever going to be at peace in this family. When you push past all of that, and you go, God, I'm seeking you. I'm going to do what you tell me to do. Where you tell me to go, I'm going to go. What you tell me to say, I'm going to say. Regardless to if nobody wants to hear it. Regardless to if everybody is frustrated. I'm going to do what you told me to do. And I'm going to line up. And I'm going to make sure that I line up. And I'm going to do it to a T. The exact way you told me to do it. When you told me to do it. That's the thing. See, sometimes we like to just sit on it for a minute and ponder on it. Well, God, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't do this. I don't really know. You want me to do it right now? Because that sounds crazy right now. No, go do it. Do what he told you to do. Because when your obedience and your faith are lined up, it's a setup for God to show up. And he did. Not only did he bless the woman to be able to pay off her debt, but she had some to live off of. Don't you want some to live off of? Something that sustains you, not just for today, for your need for today, but sustains you for your need for forever? Like you never have to go back and revisit this situation ever again. You never have to feel the way you feel in this moment. You never have to deal with this anxiety and frustration again. That you never have to sit in this moment feeling all of these emotions because I'm pressing towards God. Don't you want that? So, you guys, that is just my little take on deliverance. What does it cost? What is it going to cost you to be the price of deliverance? That's what we talked about tonight, the price of deliverance. If you are somebody who heard this and go, you know what, God, I know it. I know God is telling me that I need to get delivered. I'm dealing with some stuff and I need to be set free from these issues. Then I want you to go to our website and go under the tab that says deliverance, and you'll be able to fill out the form. There is a form on there. There's a little hyperlink. You click the link. The link will take you to the form and you just complete the form. And it's that simple. That is exactly how you sign up for deliverance. Our team will receive that form. We'll go ahead and set up a call with you to talk to you, to go through the form, make sure we've got all the pieces. And then, of course, we'll talk to you about next steps. Deliverance is a process with the Dream Team. It is not someone calling you tomorrow and go, okay, you deliver, get up, go ahead. It is definitely a process because we want to make sure that not only are we teaching you how to close the doors, but we teaching you how not to open them ever again. Don't go back to that thing again. Once you close it, you don't want to go back there. And then how do you maintain? Like, what things should I be staying away from? If you help me and I'm being delivered from alcoholism, then can addiction come up in a different way? If you're not careful, yes, you can be addicted to something else. It probably won't be alcoholism tomorrow. What can it be? Well, let's talk about that. And so that's what we want to make sure we're doing. We're equipping you with the knowledge to be able to sustain. That's what it is. And so that's a little bit about Dream. That's a little bit about what we are. That's a little bit about the service today. That is all I have for you guys tonight. I want to keep it under an hour, and I was able to successfully do that. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to the Dream Team. Our email is dreem, DREEMM 002 @gmail.com. All right, you guys, you have a great evening, and we will see you later this week. Talk to you guys later. Bye, everybody.